That's cool. A lot of you like to make fun of Ben Shapiro for describing that joke, and half of you motherfuckers unironically are like Ben Shapiro when it comes to understanding jokes or require that level of analysis to appreciate a joke when you deep dive into the ethical complications of laughing at humor. All right. Speaking of Dark Brandon, though, the Senate actually fell ass backwards into like at least some legislative change in the good direction, I guess. I can't wait for inflation to drop Wednesday and right wingers to lose it. Yeah. If you have no politics, the politics is spite, and spiting the reactionary right is adequate. You know what I mean? That's fine. I don't give a shit. I will never understand making fun of someone with a speech disorder, though. I can understand it. Well, one, it's because he doesn't just have a speech disorder, okay? Stop trying to fucking make it seem like Joe Brandon not knowing where the fuck he's at in the United States of America as he's like barely campaigning in the fucking Democratic primaries is actually a consequence of his speech disorder. And two, he's old as fuck. He's so old, his speech disorder came back, okay? He had successfully defeated it. And now, because he's a fucking walking fossil and his brain capacity is diminishing, his speech disorder came back. Also, I'm ableist. So there is that. Welcome to the broadcast. I'm ableist when it comes to, driving. I don't think that blind people should be able to drive. And I'm ableist when it comes to, presidents and politicians. Yeah. And ages, too. Dysarthria due to aging isn't a developmental speech disorder. It's 100% normal, just like delayed pharyngeal response. What the fuck? What is this? Is science time? I don't know what the fuck you're saying, okay? Yeah, he doesn't speak good, okay? He doesn't speak good. Also, his brain no good. Do you understand? And he's president. And president brain should be good, but it's bad. He has bad brain. And that's it. Don't give me the fucking weird science terms behind it, okay? Pharyngeal laryngitis is the reason. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Senate Democrats pass a climate tax and healthcare bill. It's called the Inflation Reduction Act, titled promptly off of Dark Brandon's roots as an Irish Republican. The IRA is what it's called. Okay. We are going to analyze some of the climate change provisions on it as well. Literally just helping your take, Lamau, but go off on science. Why are you getting mad? I'm joking, okay? I'm joking. Shut up, nerd. I know you're helping, but it's a joke, okay? It's a joke, Four Eyes. Calm down. All right, let's watch.
Passed a major healthcare, climate, and tax package on a party line vote. Vice President Harris broke the tie. It was an outcome that seemed out of reach just a few weeks ago. Our congressional correspondent Rachel Scott starts us off. Good morning, Rachel.
George, President Biden is one step closer to a major political victory this morning. After months of stalled negotiations, Senate Democrats banded together to get his economic agenda across the finish line.
The vice president votes in the affirmative, and the bill, as amended, is passed.
With every Republican opposed, Vice President Kamala Harris casting the tie-breaking vote. On the Senate floor, Democrats jumping to their feet, erupting in cheers, handing President Biden a political victory by a razor-thin majority, passing a sweeping economic package aimed at combating climate change, inflation, and lowering the cost of prescription drugs.
It's been one of the wonderful parts about this, one of the provisions on this was the insulin price cap. Now, part of it is insulin price cap for Medicare, so over the age, for those who are eligible, who are recipients of Medicare. Then your price cap, your out-of-pocket coverage, your out-of-pocket cost for insulin is going to be capped, right? However, the secondary consequence of this was going to be, once again, a price cap at $35 a month for insulin for everyone else. And of course, that was stripped away from the bill. Okay? It was taken out. Anyone who utilizes that, anyone who thinks that that's appropriate or whatever the fuck is wipe this site. Wait, what do you mean? There are multiple factors at play with the price cap, but the fact that that was taken away is, once again, a consequence of Big Pharma being fucking absolute dogs and lobbying the living titties out of like every Republican and certain certain Democrats as well. I don't give a fuck about the Senate parliamentarian. She can suck me from the back. So yeah. Anyway, let's continue.
Long, tough, and winding road. But at last, we have arrived.
Democrats reached a breakthrough, rallying behind a roughly $740 billion bill that would make the largest climate investment in U.S. history, provide tax credits to buy electric vehicles, lower premiums for Americans buying their own health insurance, and make prescription drugs more affordable for seniors, capping out-of-pocket expenses at $2,000. All that would be paid for by increasing taxes on top corporations.
This may be the very last time that we have an opportunity to take action in a substantial way against the threat of climate change.
Not like Americans have issues with lifestyles that bring about diabetes later in life. Oh no, totally, dude. It's just lifestyle. That's what it is. No, I mean, it's not just lifestyle, okay? It's the same fucking forces at play that lobbied the shit out of Congress to ensure that that is not a part of the bill that was taken out of the bill. That also is, unironically, the same lobbying groups or entities that, put shitty ass fucking food on your plate that you don't even recognize. It's not 90% lifestyle, okay? There are forces at play that you are completely oblivious to in the form of lobbying, okay? There's a reason why all of your food is riddled with microplastics, that all of your food is sweetened by high fructose corn syrup. Okay? Corn subsidies. So it's not as simple as like just put the fucking Krispy Kreme down, fatty. All right? What the fuck are you supposed to do? You're supposed to like what? What do you think? Like European lifestyles are better? Yeah, sure. They are. Do you want to know why? Because they have walkable cities. They are commuting. And they're walking in their commutes way more. They have public transit. And also on top of that, their food is better. Their food quality is better. There's also type 1 diabetes, which is not lifestyle, and genetic predispositions that cause you to become diabetic later on in life as well. So, it's not just lifestyle, no matter what. And the price negotiations for medicine was only for 10 medications. It was going to be, it's going to start off at like, 2026 or some shit. Like it's not even starting off immediately. There's so much going on. It is significantly more complicated than just you're eating too many sweet things.
It's been a long, tough, and winding road, but at last, we have arrived. I know it's been a long day and a long night, but we've gotten it done. Today, after more than a year of hard work, the Senate is making history. I am confident the Inflation Reduction Act will endure as one of the defining legislative feats of the 21st century. Our bill reduces inflation, lowers costs, creates millions of good-paying jobs, and is the boldest climate package in U.S. history. This bill will kickstart the era of affordable clean energy in America. It's a game changer, it's a turning point, and it's been a long time in coming. To Americans who've lost faith that Congress can do big things, this bill is for you. To seniors who face the indignity of rationing medications or skipping them altogether. This bill is for you and to the tens of millions of young Americans who have spent years marching, rallying, demanding that Congress act on climate change. This bill.
older hot twink jerks himself off on camera until completion.
Is for you.
Great. Thank you. Insulin debt is a phrase that only exists in a dystopia. 4 out of 5 Americans with diabetes went into debt to pay for insulin, new survey shows. Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. Remember that, okay? Just normal things in the richest country on the planet. You know what I mean? Just remember that. Okay. Here are some of the amendments that Bernie Sanders put forward that were, of course, destroyed. Cut Medicare drug prices by 50%. 1 yes vote, 99 no. 1:15 a.m. Expand Medicare. 3 yes votes, 97 no. Civilian Climate Corps, similar to the original original Civilian Corps. You know, a really important role in the New Deal. 1 yay, 98 no. Extend child tax credit. 1 yes, 97 no. Strike fossil fuel brakes. 1 yes, 99 no. It always seems impossible until it's done. Never give up. And you saw the hardest fucking photo of Bernie Sanders dropping the hottest album at the steps outside the Senate. And there was a hot mic moment where Bernie Sanders is talking about the child tax credit, where he says, he asked Sherrod Brown, for the record, who is supposed to be like a progressive guardian, right? Well, he asked Sherrod Brown why adding the child tax credit would actually end up screwing up the Inflation Reduction Act, and his response is, "Come on, Bernie." So that's cool. That's wonderful and cool. I like that. Bernie Sanders tried to amend the bill to include in the voterama, for the record. This is the voterama part of the process that happens in the budget reconciliation, where like everyone is able to tack on certain things that they want, certain provisions that they want onto this bill. It's more so symbolic, if we're being real, especially because people will just vote no, like they did aggressively, which makes them look fucking horrible, for the record. And by the way, those numbers include Democrats as well. Bernie Sanders tried to amend the bill to include an extension of the monthly child allowance that Democrats enacted on a temporary basis last year, but couldn't continue due to opposition from Joe Manchin. Pathetically, the United States has the highest child poverty rate of almost any major country on earth, Sanders said. Unfortunately for the millions working parents who benefited from this program, it expired in December. Sherrod Brown and Michael Bennet, two of the strongest proponents of the child tax credit, rose in opposition to the Sanders amendment, not because they didn't like it, but because its adoption would have jeopardized the cheaper prescription drugs and billions for green energy promised by the Inflation Reduction Act. We also, once this is over, I will show you Bernie, I think, talked about Bernie's criticisms of the bill as well.
Republicans tried to derail the package during a marathon 15-hour session suggesting changes to the legislation and pointing to one analysis that shows the bill would have little impact on inflation anytime soon.
This Inflation Reduction Act is a lie. It's not going to reduce inflation.
But after months of tense negotiations and party infighting, this is a long sought-after victory for Democrats, less than 100 days before the midterm elections.
The House still has to take up this measure. That could happen as early as Friday. And as for when Americans will start to feel the impact of this legislation, some of this will take time. That out-of-pocket cap for prescription drugs for seniors won't kick in until 2025. And even Democrats admit this will have little impact on inflation in the short term and the pinch that so many Americans are feeling at home, George.
That's what the analysis shows, but it was a big victory for the Democrats. Rachel, thanks very much. Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage.
Oh, yeah, 2025. I thought it was 2026. So 2025.
Joining me now, fresh from the ongoing marathon vote on the Senate floor, is the Senator Bernie Sanders, independent.
Come on, guys. You don't understand. These things take time, okay?
From Vermont, Senator Sanders.
Which is great because, yeah, then Trump will take credit for it, too, when he wins in 2024. So that's cool. Wonderful gift for Donald Trump.
Thank you for making time to come away. I understand you are headed toward another vote at some point. Where do we stand on this bill? And tell me a little bit about your objection to it. You are going to vote in favor of the passage of this act, but you did speak against something about it and propose an amendment.
Well, Ali, look, this country faces enormous crises in terms of health care, the high cost of prescription drugs, child care, higher education, climate, income and wealth inequality. This is what we call a reconciliation bill. And what that means is that we only need 50 votes. You don't have to get 60 votes. You don't need any Republican votes to do something significant for working families in this country. And unfortunately, for fairly well-known reasons, we have two conservative Democrats. We couldn't get the 50 votes that we need, really, to impact the needs of working families. So I have offered a series of amendments to strengthen the bill, which have not succeeded. Bottom line is that you have a bill which does some good things. We put some $300 billion into clean energy. And at a time when we face an existential threat in terms of climate change, this is a step forward. But on the other hand, as part of the deal, we're allowing oil and gas companies the opportunity to drill on millions of acres of public water and land. We're giving more tax breaks and corporate welfare to the oil industry. There is a reason why BP and Shell, two of the largest oil companies in this country, are supporting the bill. In terms of prescription drugs, this legislation takes a very baby step forward. We pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. In some cases, you well know, we've talked about it, 10 times more than Canadians. What this bill does is say that Medicare should negotiate prescription drug prices, but only after 4 years, and they start off with only 10 drugs and go from there. So it's a very modest step forward. Bottom line is I'm going to support the bill because given the crisis of climate change, the environmental community says this is a step forward. It doesn't go anywhere near as far as it should. It is a step forward.
And obviously, of all the matters in there, these two issues, whether it be climate or health care, are near and dear to both of our hearts. I want to talk specifically about some of the things you wanted to do. You had an amendment, 5210, requiring that Medicare not pay more than the VA. Right. Tell me what that was meant to do.
This is a very simple amendment. Right now, I don't know if anybody knows this, for 30 years, the Veterans Administration has been negotiating prescription drug prices with the VA, similar to what Canada does, what countries all over the world do. The result is that the VA pays half as much for prescription drugs as Medicare. Now, how insane is it that in one federal government, you got the VA paying 50% of what Medicare is paying for prescription drugs? So all that my amendment said is, you know what? Medicare should not pay any more than the VA. Do what they've been doing for 30 years. Now, when you take on the pharmaceutical industry, you are taking on the most powerful lobby here in Washington, D.C. They have an unlimited amount of money to make sure we pay outrageously high prices. They got 1,700 paid lobbyists. So bottom line is, this legislation is a baby step.
The only reason why this man is not assassinated, and I want you to understand it, the only reason why this man is not assassinated is because that's how fucking powerless the left is, ultimately. That he can, go on TV and say all this, and there's no mechanism to fight back against the lobbying interest groups, okay? That's it. Otherwise, if this shit happened in a situation where, he actually had the capacity to move the needle and genuinely push people further to the left, then he would be gone. They would kill him.
Step forward, it doesn't go as far as it should.
You had another amendment which caught my interest, and that was the establishment of a civilian climate corps. What does that mean?
Well, what that's about is the bill puts $300 billion into clean energy, and that's a good thing. That's probably the best thing in the bill. But, the leaders, as you well know, in America and all over the world, the people who've been leading the effort to take on the fossil fuel industry and transform our energy system, they are the young people. They're out on the streets, they're demonstrating, they're demanding disinvestment from fossil fuel companies. They've been the leader. And what these young people want to do is they want to be able to roll up their sleeves and go to work in doing energy efficiency, doing sustainable energy. And what this legislation is about, we had it in the original Build Back Better bill, it provides $30 billion in providing good jobs for some 400,000 young people, educational benefits. And it says, we need your help. Help us to transform our energy system. And it would have, I believe, created a lot of excitement among young people.
Senator, before I let you go, there's definitely new energy in the air, possibly around the Supreme Court case having to do with Dobbs and Roe v. Wade, that are getting people to turn out for these primaries and getting them more interested. You said that there are things, whether it's to do with health care or climate, that are baby steps in this bill. Do you get some impression that perhaps in these
Your whole channel is just you eating food with political videos in the background and aggressive low-effort spiels about shit? Why do so many people watch this? I don't know, man. The only way you can find this relatable is if you remember being 17 and justifying chasing an experience with something dumb like wanting to help your community. My man has had 2 takes in this chat. I love when people come in at the same time. I eat the same meal at the same time every day and then go, you eat all the time. That's 1. 2, why do so many people watch me? Because unfortunately, the way that the media is designed is created in a way where normal people and their normal perspective on, I don't know, maybe we should lower fucking pharmaceutical prices so we're not paying 10 times for the same drugs that Canada is fucking paying, is not exactly a well-represented take in the mainstream. Okay? That's it. I'll answer your fucking bad faith question. If there were more individuals who truly did represent the better interests of the working class, okay, then maybe they wouldn't be watching me, because then my position will be well represented. Okay? But a lot of people also watch for the top of the hour ad breaks. Because at the top of the hour, there's a 60-second ad break. Also, Kristen Cinema, old Kristen Cinema warning, trigger warning. But a lot of people don't like the debates and don't like having to watch an ad. They like having an ad-free broadcasting experience. So what do those people do? Well, they subscribe for $5 or for free. And a Twitch Prime subscription is free as long as you connect your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. Or by getting gifted a sub. Like Tyler Spark just gifted 10 people a sub. If you're lucky enough to be able to get gifted a sub, you can also avoid the ad breaks that way. You will be able to watch the broadcast uninterrupted with no 60-second ad breaks. Here's the 1-minute ad break now.
midterms or in the coming 2 years, there will be an energy behind more than baby steps when it comes to climate and health care in America?
You know, I worry very much that the Democrats have not done as much as they should in terms of responding to the needs of working families. It is no great secret that we're losing white working class voters, Latino working class voters, black working class voters. On the other hand, what this extremely right-wing Supreme Court has done, probably inadvertently, when they say that no woman in the United States of America has the right to control her own body, man, that sends off a signal all over this country, in Kansas, in Vermont, all over this country. So I think what you're going to see is a real response to that disgraceful decision, and people are going to be saying, you know what? It is not government that should tell a woman how she controls her body. It is a woman herself. And I think you are going to see increased voter turnout, and I think the Republicans may regret very much what their Supreme Court has done.
Senator, good to see you. Thanks for taking some time away from the floor. I know you guys have been working for a long time and probably have many, many more hours ahead of you. Senator Bernie Sanders, independent of Vermont.
Chuck Grass says, I voted to make insulin available for pennies on the dollar to uninsured with high deductible plans, but Dems blocked it. Great. It's not true, by the way, of course. Republicans did block the cap on insulin costs for many Americans from the Democratic deal. Remember that, like, this provision could pass. It doesn't have to pass through the Senate parliamentarian. This provision is a good one that could unironically pass. If enough Republicans said, yeah, no, that's great, I'm personally on board with this, then they could just write legislation. But they won't, because the Republicans and some of the Democrats do not want it to pass. Should it be illegal for senators to lie? I think it should be illegal for senators. I think it should be illegal to be a senator. I'm an advocate for throwing every senator, and, you know, maybe Bernie Sanders goes to jail for a little bit too, but, like, honestly, I'm fine. Like, I'm fine with, like, every single senator going to jail tomorrow. It's great. Yeah, it should be illegal to Senate, to be a senator. I did play the ad break. I don't know why I didn't fucking run it, but I did. I did run it. Make every government employee that doesn't deal with personal information wear a body cam at all times. If every legislator perished, it would be a net benefit to society. Since these negotiated farmer prices don't go into effect until 2026, what's stopping the next president from just getting rid of it? It doesn't work that way. Once it's like passed through budget reconciliation, it still need legislative action. That's the one cool part about something that many young Americans have completely forgotten, which is that when the legislative body takes action, whether it is through budget reconciliation where the margins are 50-50 and you can still push it through, or whether it's through like broad legislative action, it's a little bit harder to actually undermine said legislative agenda, especially from the executive office. Under the bill, the Interior Department would be required to offer up at least 2 million acres of federal land and 60 million acres of offshore acreage to oil and gas producers every year for the next decade. If they fall short, they wouldn't be able to advance some permitting aspects of the wind and solar projects on federal land. Remember, this is the reason why Manchin was on board with this bill, was because it was written in such a way where it was literally fucking tied to additional land that the oil and gas producers could fucking destroy. So remember that. It would be the first ever required minimum acreage for offshore oil and gas leasing and significantly increase the acreage requirements for onshore leasing. It would also revive Biden's outrageous failed attempt to carry out the largest oil and gas lease sale in the country's history, which a judge had blocked earlier this year for failing to properly account for the disastrous climate impact. It is a renewable energy revolution on top of a fossil fuel build-out, says Noel. Others were less polite, calling the proposed pairing deranged and madness. Brett Hartle, government affairs director at the CBD, called it a climate suicide pact. Because remember, you can't just do a renewable energy bill because there's Democrats in the Senate that will block it. That renewable energy bill has to come alongside a bill that is just like a gift wrap for the oil and gas industry. And now we don't even have an EPA. The EPA was already gutted to begin with. So now the bill is even fucking further. I mean, the bill was already awful here. Let's look at Bernie Sanders live on the Senate floor, ripping into it real quick.
Retrieve, review, and edit documents and send email to the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. the majority Republican managers of the bill, while seated or standing at the manager's desk, be permitted to deliver floor remarks, retrieve, review, and edit documents, and send email and other data communications from text displayed on wireless personal digital assistant devices and tablet devices. I further ask unanimous consent that the use of calculators be permitted on the floor during consideration of the bill. Further, that the staff be permitted to make technical at 16%, with 82%. According to the most recent Gallup poll, the approval rate for Congress is at 16%, with 82% of the American people disapproving of the work we are doing here. 16 think we're doing a good job, 82% think not. Further, according to a recent University of Chicago poll, a strong majority of Americans, and this is extremely important, and I hope members of Congress hear this, a majority of Americans believe that the government is, quote, corrupt and rigged against me, end of quote. People believe the government is corrupt and rigged against them. Further,
remember, what do I always say? You can get 30% of Americans to agree on anything, except for whether or not Congress is doing a good job. How insane. This country has like a 48%, 48% of Americans polled believe that like fucking Jesus Christ is going to come back and that angels are real. Okay? You can get, like I've said, always, it's a Hasanabi fucking trope at this point. You can get at least 30% of Americans to agree to anything. Except for Congress doing a good job.
According to a USA Today poll that came out last week, a very strong majority no longer believe that the Democratic or Republican parties are responding to their needs.
I wonder why.
And we need to move to a multi-party system. And I think what is most frightening in terms of where the American people are politically today is that there is actually a growing number of Americans who believe that they may have to take up arms against their own government in order to accomplish what they think needs to be done. Madam President, all of this speaks to a very, very dangerous moment for American democracy, and in a number of ways it resembles the conditions that existed in Europe in the 1920s and early 1930s, which led to fascism and totalitarianism. In other words, at a time when so many of our people are hurting, many of them no longer believe that in our democratic system, government is capable of responding to their needs, and they are losing faith in our democracy. The people of this country believe, and in my view correctly, that we have a corrupt political system dominated by the wealthy and the powerful, and that we have a rigged economy in which large corporations are seeing huge profits, some cases heaviest profits ever, while the middle class and working families continue to see a decline in their standard of living. Let me just give you one small example of what is going on, and that is within the last few weeks, while Americans continue to pay outrageously high gas prices at the pump, prices are going down, but they're still a lot higher than they were a year ago, 2 years ago. And while people pay high prices, Exxon, Mobil, Shell, and BP reported a record-breaking $46 billion in profits during the second quarter. People pay more at the gas pump. The major oil companies are seeing huge profits. In terms of the extremely high price of prescription drugs, 3 large pharmaceutical companies, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and AbbVie, increased their profits last year by 90% to $54 billion, a 90% increase in their profits, while so many of our people cannot afford the high cost of prescription drugs. Madam President, that is what a rigged economy is all about. Huge corporate profits, while working people cannot afford the basic necessities of life. Madam President, let us be clear about where we are as a nation. and that is the American people are tired of press releases. They're tired of 30-second ads. They're tired of speeches. They are hurting, and they are begging their elected officials to respond to their needs. And if you want to know why there is so much anger and so much frustration and so much disillusionment within our society today, it's important to understand that
Listen, the American people are tired of ads, which is why I always run top of the hour ad break, which I ran already, and urge you to avoid seeing those ads by subscribing.
Weekly wages for the average American worker are lower today than they were 49 years ago. And clearly, the inflation of today is pushing the average person even further behind. Not so many years ago, when I was a kid, it was possible for one worker in a family, like my father, never made much money, to earn enough money to take care of his kids and the family. Today, that is a rarity. Today, it is necessary in almost all cases for two workers in a family to have to go out to work. Today, Madam President, despite the huge increases in our economy, despite the tremendous explosion of technology, everything being equal, our younger generation will have a lower standard of living than their parents, have a harder time finding a home, having a harder time being able to have a family. Imagine that, our younger generation having a lower standard of living than their parents. Madam President, half of our people today live paycheck to paycheck, and many millions are working for starvation wages, 9, 10, 11 bucks an hour. Further, many workers around the country who want to join a union and engage in collective bargaining at companies like Starbucks, Amazon, and other places are facing fierce and illegal anti-union resistance. And I have to say, Madam President, that this legislation does not address any of their needs. This legislation does not address the reality that we have more income and wealth inequality today than at any time in the last 100 years, where 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of America. Doesn't address the fact that 95% of all new income is going to the top 1%. Doesn't address the reality that CEOs of major corporations are making 350 times what their workers are making. Madam President, I think everybody knows that we have a completely dysfunctional healthcare system. We now spend over $12,000 a year per person, more than double what other countries spend. Today, over 70 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured, and there are studies out there that say that some 60,000 people a year die because they're uninsured or underinsured and they don't get to a doctor on time. Meanwhile, every year, the insurance companies make tens of billions of dollars in profit. So we have a system in which the cost is outrageously high. People are dying because they don't get to a doctor on time. This bill does nothing to address the systemic dysfunctionality of the American healthcare system. Does nothing. Madam President, in terms of our kids, the future of our nation, shamefully, we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major nation on earth. This bill, as currently written, does nothing to address that. Madam President, our child care system is dysfunctional. If a working family is lucky enough to find a slot for their young one, on average, they will pay about $15,000 a year for child care, an impossibly high sum of money. Imagine that. $15,000 a year for child care if you're making $40,000 or $50,000. That is an absurd sum of money. Yet this bill turns its back on the working parents of this country and our children, does not begin to address the child care or pre-K crisis that we face. Madam President, a nation will be as great and competitive as its educational system is. And yet today, hundreds of thousands of bright...
No, when he says Madam President, he's misgendering Joe Brandon. Don't you know he's transphobic, Sweaty? It's not because Kamala is the president of the Senate as the vice president. He's misgendering Brandon. Talking directly to him and saying, Brandon, you're a woman. You're abroad. And the American people are tired of women. That's what he's saying.
Young kids all across this country are unable to afford a higher education. Imagine that. In the richest country in the history of the world, when we need the best educated workforce possible, got hundreds of thousands of young people.
Oh, this is prescient that was in chat. No one in Congress takes him seriously. They're all scoffing at him as he says this. He wouldn't be the only one vote otherwise. This is what makes this so angry. Yeah.
Cannot afford a higher education. And we have 45 million Americans who are struggling with student debt, sometimes outrageous levels of student debt. This bill, as currently written, does nothing to address it. Madam President, today, millions of elderly Americans and half of our senior citizens are trying to survive on $25,000 a year or less. Millions of senior citizens are unable to afford to go to a dentist. Imagine that. In the richest country on earth, elderly people can't afford to go to a dentist. Their teeth are rotting in their mouths. They can't afford hearing aids in order to hear what their kids, grandchildren have to say. They can't afford eyeglasses. This bill ignores that issue, does nothing to expand Medicare to cover those very basic health care needs. The result, millions of seniors will continue to have rotten teeth and lack the dentures, hearing aids, or eyeglasses they deserve. Madam President, and I hear this all of the time in Vermont, and I expect my colleagues hear it as well, so many of our elderly and disabled people would much prefer to stay in their homes rather than be forced into nursing homes. They need someone to come to.
Archie21, love Bernie, but why is he so cozy with Brandon, his good friend, and all the worst ghouls in DNC? Who cares? Like, who cares? He rips him, he shreds him regularly where it fucking matters. And he does politics to be like, oh, they're my good friends. These are my coworkers. You know what I mean? Some of you act like you've never fucking worked a day in your lives where you have to, just say like, oh yeah, these guys are my friends. I like them. And even if he's actually fucking friends with them, I don't care. I just don't care. I literally do not care. I'm not deriving like additional I don't know, like an additional ounce of scrutiny out of like whether Bernie Sanders like doesn't fucking spit in Joe Biden's face or not, okay? You also have to recognize that like there's a reason why there's so much resentment towards Bernie Sanders within the Democratic Party. That is not because he doesn't adequately mention how friendly he is with Joe Brandon. That is because he regularly fucking makes them look bad. Okay? How does he make him look bad? By adding provisions like expanding the child tax credit. Provisions that make him profoundly popular, by the way. When you put that in there, in the voterama, all of a sudden you have, 50 Democrats or 49 Democrats that vote no on it, making them look fucking horrible.
Their home to help them with their basic needs. I don't think anyone denies that we have a major crisis in home health care. And the people who are doing home health care now, and God bless them all, are usually overworked and underpaid. This bill, as currently written, does nothing to address that crisis. Madam President, again, no debate. Everybody agrees that we have a major housing crisis in America. Some 600,000 people are homeless, sleeping out on the streets in every state in this country. In addition to the homeless issue, nearly 18 million households are paying 50% or more of their limited incomes for housing. Imagine that. Imagine that, what it means. How do you have any money to do anything else when you're paying 50% of your limited income for housing? Yet this bill does nothing to address the major housing crisis that we face or build one unit of safe and affordable housing. Just another issue that we push aside. And I would say, Madam President, and every working person understands this, that while ordinary people are struggling with childcare, with health care, with housing, with the basic necessities of life, the people on top today are doing phenomenally well. During the pandemic alone, the billionaire class saw an almost $2 trillion increase in their wealth. So that, in a snapshot, is where we are as a nation today. Working people are hurting. In many ways, their standard of living is in decline. People on top are doing phenomenally well. And that takes us to where we are this evening. The importance of the bill that we are considering this evening is that it...
This is why people are acting out about Bernie. Yeah, dude, I know. He like both sides Israel, okay? I know. 900 years old. He should be allowed to have fucking bad takes. I'm sorry. And I say this as someone who daggers the Israeli occupying force regularly, okay? Sure, you're not going to agree with 100% of his fucking opinions. I don't know what you want. Like, ultimately, guess what? He's also not fucking living in the woods and training revolutionary Marxists to, like, overtake military bases, okay? So there's always going to be some shit that he's doing that's not enough.
It is not a normal, not a regular piece of legislation. It is a reconciliation bill. And I know that to anybody outside of the Beltway, that doesn't mean much. But what it does mean is that unlike regular legislation here in the Senate, this bill does not require 60 votes.
Want to go over your YouTube later, King? Yes, Lud. We'll do it later.
To get passed. All we need to get this bill passed are 50 votes plus the vice president, if it is a tie. Now, I say this in all honesty, that it is extremely sad to me, and I think the American people, that up to this point, we have not had one Republican come forward and say, you know what, I want to work on the housing crisis, on the health care crisis, on the education crisis, on the home health care crisis. Sadly, we have not had one Republican come forward who is prepared to stand up for working families, for the children, for the elderly, or for the environment. That is a sad state of affairs. But here is the truth. If all 50 members of the Democratic caucus were to stand together today, we could pass some enormously important amendments which would have a profound impact on improving the lives of working people in our country, and maybe, just maybe, could begin the process of restoring faith in our democracy. Poll after poll makes it clear. Not only are the American people hurting, they want Congress to take bold action to improve their lives. And under the budget reconciliation process, we have the opportunity to do that. And if we don't do it now, when all we need are 50 votes, it is quite questionable as to when, in fact, we will ever do that. In other words, what I am asking today is for all 50 members of the Democratic caucus to come together and begin the process of addressing some, not all, some of the major crises facing working families. It is absolutely imperative that we show the American people that we are capable of representing the needs of ordinary people, not just billionaire campaign contributors, not just lobbyists, but ordinary people who are hurting today. And if we cannot do that, not only will people continue to hurt and suffer, but to my mind, it is questionable for how long we remain a democracy.
I mean, we're not.
Madam President, let me say a few words about what is in this legislation. A bill which has some good features, but also, in my view, has some very bad features. This bill deals with three major areas: prescription drugs, climate, and taxation. Let me deal with at least two of them. Prescription drugs. Now, I know that in Vermont, and I suspect in Wisconsin and all over this country, people are outraged at the fact that they are paying so much for prescription drugs. They are outraged that in some cases we pay 10 times more than Canada and other countries for the same exact product. Now, the good news is, Madam President, that this bill this reconciliation bill will do what should have been done many years ago, something that many of us called for many years ago, and that it will allow Medicare to begin negotiating prescription drug prices with the pharmaceutical industry. Now, that is not a radical idea. That is an idea that exists in probably every other major country on earth. And that is why their prices are so much lower. They don't let the drug companies charge any price that they want. So that's the good news.
I've said time and time again, which of course, bargaining of that sort should be covered under, a capitalist free market. When you go to like a Costco or you go to a Sam's Club, wherever the fuck, you're getting wholesale prices. Why? Because you're getting wholesale, you're purchasing wholesale. The price point is lower. America's the only fucking OECD nation where the government buys a boatload of fucking wholesale drugs and can't actually negotiate because it is banned. That's the reason why other countries are able to pay a tenth of the prices for the same pharmaceuticals that you get.
News. But here, Madam President, is the bad news, and we must be honest about it. At a time when so many of our people cannot afford the prescription drugs they need, and 1 out of 4 Americans can't even fill the prescription their doctor's write, this Medicare negotiating provision will not go into effect for 4 years, at which time only 10 drugs will be negotiated, with more to come in later years. So, if anybody thinks that as a result of this bill we're suddenly going to see lower prices for Medicare, you are mistaken. Ain't going to happen next year, the year after, the year after, the year after. And by the way, given the incredible power of the pharmaceutical industry, I would suspect even money that they will figure out a way to get around this provision if it takes 4 years to implement.
Oh, yeah.
So, this provision will have no impact on the prices for those.
Damn! Look at that. Yo! Look at how quickly he pulled it out and swapped it. Make this man the president. I don't give a fuck. He's 900 years old. I'm going against everything I said earlier about like how old people, I'm ageist, I'm ableist, whatever. This man is able, okay? This man is able-bodied. He's able and he's capable. Look how fast he pulled his phone out and fucking he slid behind his back, dude. Look at that. Look.
This provision will have no impact.
Boom! Passed! That's crazy. That's crazy. Some of you are like 17 and you can't do that, okay? Woo! God damn, dude. This man deserves it. This man deserves the presidency.
On the prices for those Americans. Furthermore, this provision will have no impact on the prices for those Americans who are not on Medicare. So if you're under 65, this bill will not impact you at all, and the drug companies will be able to continue to go.
That's one of the worst aspects of it that they totally fucking destroyed.
On their merry way and raise prices to any level that they want. Madam President, under this bill, at a time when the drug companies are enjoying huge profits, the pharmaceutical industry will still be allowed to charge the American people by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. So that is the reality of this bill. What do we do? Well, if we are serious about responding to what the American people want in the polling that I have seen, it's like 70 or 80% of the people understand that prescription drugs are much too high. They want us to act. This bill, unfortunately, does not do that. If we are serious about reducing the price of prescription drugs, we know exactly how we can do it. For over 30 years, the Veterans Administration has been negotiating with the pharmaceutical industry to lower the cost of prescription drugs. Moreover, for decades, virtually every other country on earth has been doing the same thing. The result of where we are today is that Medicare pays twice as much for the exact same prescription drugs as the VA and people all over this country. In some cases, as I mentioned earlier, we may pay up to 10 times as much for a particular drug. In other words, when it comes to reducing the price of prescription drugs under Medicare, we do not have to reinvent the wheel. We could simply require Medicare to pay no more for prescription drugs than the VA. That is not a radical idea.
Bro, this, like, if there was even like talk of this happening, they would assassinate him. I swear to God, the pharma lobby would be like, all right, you're dead. They would drone strike his fucking house, dude. The profit margins are at stake here. You know what I mean? There's no shot. It's wild that, like, this is the most tepid thing he could advocate for, by the way. I want you to understand what he is currently talking about is simply making sure that large purchases of pharmaceuticals that are being conducted by the government be price locked so that the VA and Medicare have the same, or the Medicaid has the same fucking price point. It's just, it's out of the question. Like, this is not Medicare for all, not anything. It just straight up reduces the cost of the pharmaceuticals that the government buys and reduces the cost of the pharmaceuticals that end up in your hands as well. The only negative consequence of this is that big pharma profits will go down. And it's not even a question in the Senate. This is not even being considered.
That is a simple idea. You got one government agency doing what they're doing for 30 years. All we have to do is have Medicare do the same. And if we did that, we could literally cut the price of prescription drugs on the Medicare in half.
Yeah, but what about the shareholders? They could suck me from the back too. Straight up. This entire system is fucking broken, dude. The notion that, like, we're talking about the shareholders in that circumstance, when like 90% of the shareholders are also suffering as a consequence of said drug prices being so high. You get it, right? Because, like, the way the stock market works is that the top 10% of wealth own 90% of the market, okay? So sure, like, technically everyone has a stake in the stock market. Everyone is, in some way, shape, or form, if they've bought into, like, the pharmaceutical industry in the stock market, their 401ks might take a hit, like a minor hit, but they're taking a fucking hit at the bank in their wallet every goddamn day. Every single one of your parents and yourselves are already personally taking a hit. You might be marginally better off. Your investments might be marginally better off, but that's negligible, okay, in comparison to your fucking wallet taking a gigantic hit when you pay 10 times the prices for the drugs that every other country is paying less for. Same drugs. And this is the wild part about it that Americans cannot comprehend. This is an intentional aspect of the privatization of social safety nets, such as Social Security in the form of 401ks. This is what happens when you don't have pensions, and pension plans are already, complicated and have a litany of issues as well. But this is what happens when you privatize an aspect of the government that's supposed to be publicly handled and adequate. Motherfucker said, says you. Bad take. Why would you want to lose money? No, I'm saying you would make more money in the long run. In the form of incredible amounts of savings. Okay?
Half in a matter of months, not years. And that is why I am introducing.
Americans fund a lot of the research and development as well, then they can't afford to buy the drugs that they help create. Yeah. R&D's coming out of your pockets too in the form of taxes, which is good. It's a good place that the taxes go to. You're funding these colleges that also then end up going back into the R&D by paying insanely high prices for colleges. And when you look at the per capita argument for research and development, for what you put in, our research and development, like our new novel chemical compound development per capita, is still significantly lower than countries like Switzerland, which also have a relatively capitalist healthcare system, but certainly not even in the fucking top 5. And that's before you attribute cost to it. How much we pay for all these things, how much we pay for R&D versus how much new chemical compounds, novel chemical compounds we find in the United States of America. Of course, if you look at the totality of it, America is gigantic. So, yes, we are inventing more here than other countries that are much, much smaller. But you have to look at the efficiency. If you want to look at it from a capitalist point of view, you could do that as well. From an efficiency perspective, if you were to look at new chemical compounds being found, $1 goes a much longer way in every social democratic country where there are more novel chemical compounds being found per capita than the United States of America.
An amendment today to do just that. Under this amendment, we could save Medicare $900 billion over the next decade. This is nine times more savings than the rather weak negotiation provisions currently in the bill. We could save $900 billion by negotiating rather than $100 billion. The reason that we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs is not hard to understand. During the past 20 years, the pharmaceutical industry has spent over $5 billion on lobbying and over $500 million in campaign contributions. Further, the pharmaceutical industry has, over the years...
That's called kickbacks, baby. You got to give the people that are allowing you to rake in record high profits a crumb back in return. That's what it is. Instead of paying the federal government, right, in the form of taxes, instead of lowering your pharmaceutical cost by allowing the government to negotiate, pay a couple $2 billion to the Senate so they just make sure that those key provisions that would hurt your bottom line never get passed.
Mounted an unprecedented lobbying effort in Washington and in states all across this country. Now, what is unbelievable, if you want to know what a corrupt political system is about, if you want to know what money in politics is about, if you want to know what corporate greed is about, if you want to know why we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, please understand that right now, at this moment, the pharmaceutical industry has more than 1,700 well-paid lobbyists on Capitol Hill to protect their interests, including former congressional leaders of both major political parties. They buy Democratic leaders, they buy Republican leaders, they buy former members of Congress. 1,700 well-paid lobbyists to make sure they continue to rip off the American people and charge us.
In every other country, we call this bribery and corruption, by the way. One of the most significant problems with even countries like Sri Lanka or any other country that's developing is corruption, right? Turkey, Erdogan, he's so corrupt. He's getting kickbacks from the same industry leaders that are giving him the money rather than funding the fucking federal government, funding the government, right? That's corruption when it happens in Turkey. That's corruption when it happens in any other country. But here in America, it's called corporate lobbying and it's totally legal. In the West, you call it lobbying because we have codified corruption. We have made it legal. We've legalized corruption, so it's somehow more appropriate. This used to be better in Europe. It's changing over the course of the past 2 decades. Europe has also changed with respect to how much lobbying works, but there's still public funding laws and rules and regulations in place as to how much money politicians can get. But of course, if you look at places like the UK, for example, there's still methods of sidestepping that by getting your friends into positions of power. You know what I mean? Which also happens in America on top of the lobbying. Hey, I mean, if it's above board, you can regulate it. No, you can't. If it could be regulated, it would be regulated. It is a overwhelmingly popular thing to destroy the nefarious and outsized, gross amount of influence that lobbyists have over Congress. It is the reason why America is an oligarchy rather than a true democratic country. And yet you talk about regulation as though it's something that you can regulate, when capital power is so incredibly, overwhelmingly powerful that there's no regulation in place.
The highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. That is over 3 lobbyists for every 1 member of Congress. 535 members of Congress, 1,700.
Motherfucker said corruption, when it's legalized, can be regulated. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders talking about how there's 3 lobbyists for every member of Congress. How do you regulate that? Well, I have an idea on how you can regulate it, for the record. But, you know, I won't say it out loud.
Lobbyist. Mr. President, just yesterday, and this is really interesting, and I think it brings it all out, the CEO of Pharma, his name is Steve Ubel, I think, basically said, and I appreciate his honesty and straightforward, he said, anybody who votes even for this incredibly tepid bill.
People will turn around and be like, lol, cops policing themselves? That's funny. Obviously, that's not going to fucking work. But then when it comes to Congress policing itself, you're like, no, it'll happen. It'll happen. Why? Because, I believe in the theory of democracy. Yeah, totally, bro. It'll definitely happen. I'm sure Congress will regulate itself to ensure that they get less money as a consequence of sitting in this fucking throne of power. That'll certainly happen eventually, you know?
He said, we are going to go after you. He stated, and I love this, the kind of modesty, he said, quote, few associations have all the tools of modern political advocacy at their disposal in the way that Pharma does, end of quote. In other words, if you dare to vote in any way to lower the cost of prescription drugs, we're going to spend all of the money we have, and we have endless, unlimited amounts of money against you. That is what a corrupt political system is about. That's what corporate greed is about. Basically, the CEO of Pharma saying, you vote for this bill, you can expect millions and millions of dollars of 30-second ads against you. That's where we are in the state of our democracy today. Madam President, Mr. President, prescription drugs is a huge issue, but it's not the only issue that is dealt with inadequately in this legislation. It is my view, I think it is the view of the majority of American people, it is certainly the view of the scientific community, that climate change is an existential threat to that planet. Now, that sounds like a big word, existential. But what it means, if we don't get our act together, there may not be a planet that is healthy and habitable for our children and grandchildren. It is very fundamental. Do we protect future generations?
The only problem with Bernie Sanders is that he says fundamental like he's British. That's the only issue I have with him. That's it.
Mr. President, this legislation provides $370 billion over the next decade to combat climate change and to invest in so-called energy security programs. Now, the good news, and it is good news, is that this legislation, as currently written, would provide more funding for energy efficiency and sustainable energy than has ever been invested before. That is the good news. But, Mr. President, the bad news is that this bill, as currently written, includes a huge giveaway to the fossil fuel industry, both in the reconciliation bill that we are considering and in a side deal that was just made public a few days ago. Mr. President, under this legislation, the fossil fuel industry will receive billions of dollars in new tax breaks and subsidies over the next 10 years, on top of the $15 billion in tax breaks and corporate welfare that they already receive every year. And interestingly enough, Mr. President, that may well be the reason why BP, one of the largest oil companies in the world, supports this bill. It may be the reason why Shell, another huge oil company, supports this bill. And it is the reason, I suspect, why the CEO of ExxonMobil is pleased by many of the provisions included in this deal. So we've got to think a little bit about what it means when major oil companies who are in the process of destroying the planet support this legislation. Under this bill, up to 60 million acres of public waters must be offered up for sale each and every year to the oil and gas industry before the federal government could approve any new offshore wind development. To put that in perspective, 60 million acres is the size of the state of Michigan. Further, under this bill, up to 2 million acres of public lands must be offered up for sale each and every year to the oil and gas industry before leases can move forward for any renewable energy development on public lands. In total, this bill will offer the fossil fuel industry up to $700 million acres of public lands and waters to oil and gas drilling.
Wait, what do you mean, what the fuck? Are you guys unfamiliar with this? I literally have been covering this for the past week. Hello? Why do you think Joe Manchin is on board with this? It's because the only way to get Joe Manchin on board with it, remember, no conflict of interest for Joe, to be sitting on the fucking energy committee despite having his family quite literally own a coal mine and represent the oil and gas industry's interests at every step. The reason how you got, Big Coal Joe on board was because they're opening up acres. Like, they're tying green energy, renewable energy initiatives, which, by the way, are not like regulatory mechanisms, which are absolutely a necessity at this point, but instead they are basically incentives. And even to give those incentives to corporations to invest into renewable energies in the form of subsidies and tax breaks, you had to open up acres of land every year for the oil and gas industry to drill on, if they wish to do so.
Over the next decade, far more than the oil and gas industry could possibly use. And Mr. President, that is not all. The fossil fuel industry will not just benefit from the provisions in the reconciliation bill as currently written. A deal has also been reached to make it easier for the fossil fuel industry to receive permits
only in America,
for their oil
boys.
and gas projects. This deal would approve the $6.6 billion Mountain Valley Pipeline, a fracked gas pipeline that would span over 300 miles from West Virginia to Virginia and potentially on to North Carolina. This is a pipeline that would generate emissions equivalent to that released by 37 coal plants or by over 27 million cars each and every year. Mr. President, let me quote from a July 29th letter from over 350 environmental organizations, including Friends of the Earth, Food and Water Watch, and the Climate Justice Alliance, expressing concerns about this bill. And I quote, "Any approval of new fossil fuel projects or fast-tracking of fossil fuel permitting is incompatible with climate leadership. Oil, gas, and coal production are the core drivers of the climate and extinction crises. There can be no new fossil fuel leases, exports, or infrastructure if we have any hope of preventing ever-worsening climate crises, catastrophic floods, deadly wildfires, and more, all of which are ripping across the country as we speak. We are out of time. Therefore, we, these 350 organizations, are calling on you, as the President, leadership of Congress, to fulfill your promise to lead on Congress, starting with denying approvals for the Mountain Valley Pipeline, rejecting all new federal fossil fuel leases onshore in the Gulf of Mexico and Alaska and everywhere else, and preventing any fast-track permits for fossil fuel projects." Mr. President, I would ask unanimous consent to insert the full letter into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. And here is what the Center for Biological Diversity had to say on this bill. Quote, "This is a climate suicide pact. It is self-defeating to handcuff renewable energy development to massive new oil and gas extraction. The new leasing required in this bill will fan the flames of the climate disasters torching our country, and it's a slap in the face to the communities fighting to protect themselves from filthy fossil fuels." End quote. Now, Mr. President, in my view, we have got to do everything we can to take on the greed, the irresponsibility, the destructiveness of the fossil fuel industry, not give billions of dollars in corporate welfare to an industry that has been destroying our planet. And that is why I will be introducing an amendment today to strike all of the benefits to the fossil fuel industry that are in this bill, and I will be asking for a roll call vote on it. And Mr. President, let me say a word about some of the other amendments that I'll be introducing. I will be introducing an amendment that is widely popular. The concept is widely popular, and that is to expand Medicare to provide dental, vision, and hearing benefits. This amendment is fully paid for by demanding that the wealthiest people start paying their fair share of taxes. Further, I will be introducing an amendment to provide $30 billion to establish the Civilian Conservation Corps, which would create 400,000 jobs for young people to combat climate change. The entire younger generation wants to roll up their sleeves and get involved in the effort to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel. And this amendment and the establishment of a Civilian Conservation Corps would allow them to do that. And further,
I gotta pee, I'll be back.
I'll be introducing an amendment to expand the $300 a month child tax credit for the next 5 years by restoring the top corporate tax rate from 21 to 28%. As you know, we made significant progress in lowering childhood poverty in America. We reduced it by 40% with the establishment of a child tax credit. But unfortunately, that was not continued in this year, and I think it needs to do so. So, bottom line, this is where we are at. The American people are hurting. Tens of millions of workers are falling further and further behind. The elderly are hurting. The kids are hurting. And people are looking to their elected representatives in Washington to finally address the crises that they are facing. And in a reconciliation bill, where we only need 50 votes and the vice president, we have the capability, if we pass these amendments, of taking a giant step forward, not only in addressing the needs of our kids, our elderly and working families, but in maybe, just maybe, beginning to restore the confidence of the American people in their democracy, in believing that their elected officials are listening to them and not just lobbyists and wealthy campaign contributors. So I would look forward to offering these amendments and getting them.
And I look forward to you not voting for them and telling the American people that there is no shot in hell that Congress represents their best interests. Okay? Will you please knock on the point that this is against the free market that conservatives and capitalists preach about? What do you mean? There's no such thing as a fucking free market, okay? There is no such thing as the free market. Not real. It's a unicorn. Made up.
Passed, and I thank the president very much and yield the floor.
How can you say there's a free market when you look at Congress and the way that they operate? How can you say there's a free market when you look at the multiple billion-dollar industry in the form of ads and propaganda and PR? There is no such thing. Okay? It does not exist, folks. It does not exist. Not real. Top of the hour ad break, on the other hand, is real. Okay? Because at the top of the hour, there's a 60-second ad break. That's not propaganda. That's real life. And you see those ads as long as you don't subscribe. Now, of course, you can subscribe for $5 or for free. Or what the fuck? Last Canarius with a 50 gifted sub. Jesus Christ. As long as you're one of the lucky 50 that just got gifted by Last Canarius, then you're fine. But if you weren't lucky enough to receive one of those, then, you know, if you weren't a part of the 50 bomb, then you're going to have to subscribe on your own for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, where you get one free Prime subscription a month. Hopefully you use it on your favorite streamer, me, even though I don't run as much ads as your other top content creators on this platform. Psychonaut Andy, thank you for the 5 get the subs. Here's the 1 minute ad break now. And Cock Eed Fartin, thank you for the 5 get the subs as well. I mean, let's look at this, by the way. Speaking of free market, Republicans block cap on insulin. The 5G vaccine for QAnon teens. Thank you for the 5 get the subs. Republicans block cap on insulin costs for many Americans in the Democratic deal. Republicans stripped out a provision to cap insulin costs at $35 for private insurers, but the Inflation Reduction Act still includes an insulin price cap for seniors on Medicare. Democrats had tried to preserve the provision to cap insulin costs at $35 for private insurance, but that vote failed 57-43, with 7 Republicans voting with them to keep insulin cost cap in the bill. 3 short of what was needed. We needed 3 fucking votes. 3 fucking votes, and blammo, all of a sudden, that's legislation. Okay? 3. Think about that. 3. Wild to consider. Here are some of the other parts that was lost in the sauce here. Here are the casualties of the big Build Back Better agenda, some of which was supposed to be in here, but were not. But ultimately, universal pre-K, gone. Child care dollars, gone. Elder care dollars, gone. Child tax credit, gone. No extension for that. Housing dollars, gone. Community college, gone. EITC expansion, closing the Medicaid gap. Immigration, tax rate hikes, gone. Millionaire surtax, gone. Ending carried interest, also gone. These items were excluded from the new bill. Now, let me tell you something. People are celebrating this, okay? I want to talk about the person responsible for, at the very least, eliminating a carried interest loophole, ending the carried interest loophole. Wonderful bisexual icon that goes by the name of Kirsten Sinema. Before we talk about the bill with respect to climate change, I want to just give a quick shout out to this lovely lady here. Kirsten Sinema used to be a dumpster diving, Green Party voting, KKK type anarchist back in the day. You know. Here's Dan Amira, who says, if you ever doubt that you can change your path in life, just remember that this person went on to become the Senate's top defender of hedge funders and private equity. Okay? Just remember. And the worst part about it is that her fucking bunk ass, dumbass fucking style never changed. Like, if anything, you could have worn fucking pantsuits and you would look better than this shit. Okay? That's the worst part. Kirsten Sinema always had horrendous drip, including rocking a fucking tutu when she was well into her goddamn 30s. And she still dresses like she survived a car crash, like a really, really horrible car crash. But Kirsten Sinema has a lot of allies for this. Finance bros are literally getting bottle service dedicated to Kirsten Sinema. Just wild that she cares more about her helping millionaire bankers pay less taxes than helping everyday Arizonans. Look at that. At Nightingale, Kirsten is bae, carried interest. She dresses like a kid whose parents let them wear Halloween costumes year round. Oh my Lord. You know she's shopping. You know she's shopping at Ross Dress for Less. Bringing it back to my original point, which is no one should shop at Ross Dress for Less, except Kirsten Sinema shops there all the fucking time. Okay? Oh my God, that is a TJ Maxx fix. Stop it. That is not true, and you know it. So, toxic chat proving they hate powerful women. Oh, 100%. Lots of things about the Manchin climate bill are true all at once. It's far and away for the country's most significant piece of climate policy ever, and is nowhere near the level of action scientists say is necessary to avoid the worst impacts of the climate crisis. What Chase Woodruff is saying. Talking about, beware of anyone telling you that the modest or incremental progress doesn't matter because we only have a narrow window to act, despite what is forgivably implied by some rhetoric. The climate crisis is not a ticking time bomb. Every ton of greenhouse gases emitted into the atmosphere, whether tomorrow or in 2050, will make things worse. And every ton we stop from being emitted, whether tomorrow or in 2050, will help. Until we stop releasing significant amounts of carbon into the atmosphere, the world will get warmer and the impacts, deadly and destabilizing heat, drought, extreme weather, sea level rise, cascading economic and political crises will get worse. He's right. So the wonderful impact of this bill in particular that we have shown is that it encourages more drilling. So there's that element. We already have hit about 1.2 centigrade of warming over pre-industrial temperatures, and things are bad. They will be worse at 1.5 centigrade, even worse at 2, worse at 2.5, and so on. Every incremental of further warming will mean a greater degree of human death and suffering. Okay, that means crop being wiped out, areas becoming desolate and impossible to do any sort of agricultural production in. That means mass migration of climate change refugees. That means war as a consequence of not having agricultural production happen in places where it used to be able to. Okay? Syrian civil war. The Syrian war in general is just a perfect representation of this. Climate change had significant impacts there. To grossly oversimplify the Manchin bill, though both direct emissions impacts and knock-on economics and geopolitical effects will probably help move the world from a path towards slightly more than 2.5 centigrade of a warming path towards slightly less than 2.5 centigrade. Together with actions over the last several years by other countries along with states and the private sector, the world has continued to make progress bending the emissions curve, and truly catastrophic warming levels of plus 3 centigrade or more now seem unlikely. This, by the way, is still devastating. Remember, we're talking about like once every 1,000-year extreme weather conditions happening year-round. Okay? Year-round. Why? Because 1.5 degrees increase. 2.5 means like humans are dying. I mean, humans are dying already, but like not indirectly from, I don't know, natural disasters or whatnot, but like human beings are dying because like there's no food and now they're fighting. There's war. There's no food. There's no agricultural production and development. And there's also massively chaotic and debilitating, destructive natural disasters. So then you have to move. Okay? You have to literally move somewhere else. And then when you try to move somewhere else, then those countries are going to put up their borders and kill you. But again, all of this taken together is still a far cry from the emissions pathway that scientists say would do the most limit to catastrophic impacts while still remaining technologically and economically feasible. A 1.5 centigrade consistent target. When scientists released an exhaustive report on the 1.5 target in 2018, they warned that achieving it would require rapid, far-reaching, and unprecedented changes in all aspects of society. This is the RDC World meme, literally, that happened in real life. Though it's been clear for a while now, the Manchin bill is a final confirmation that the world hasn't chosen that path. Without drastic transformative action by the world's largest economy, the 1.5 target is now almost certainly out of reach. So that's where we are. Pending further action, which is unlikely at the federal level for the foreseeable future, we've prevented the vast amounts of harm that would result in 3 centigrade plus warming, while choosing to accept the still vast amounts of harm that will result at 2 to 2.5. Like Mad Max future shit. Now, if you're living in the imperial core, it's not going to be as impactful for you. I mean, it still will be obviously devastating, but it's not going to be as impactful for you if you were living in like fucking Guatemala, okay? If you're living in an area that is underdeveloped and all of a sudden you can't even fucking grow crops anymore, you can't grow food anymore, you're fucked. Then you move somewhere where you move somewhere for survival, and then that place is fucked because you're now moving in droves. Not in like the natural, healthy amount of people that are trying to come into the United States of America, a country with enough wealth to be able to take care of all these people, but like you're moving to another third world country. You're now, if you're lucky, that is, of course, if you haven't died because of civil war or some shit, now you're moving to another third world country that's also not able to take care of you, okay? And then that country is also destabilized, trying to, in droves, in the millions, like multiple fucking millions, I'm talking like hundreds of millions, trying to rush the fucking border of a country that will actually be habitable for you. The scariest part, in my opinion, of climate change is that many populated cities like Delhi will frequently experience wet bulb temperatures in the future. At the wet bulb, heat-adapted and healthy people can only survive outside in the shade for a few hours, even with unlimited water. Yeah. So that's where we're at. So when you look at things like Biden's border strategy, and you realize that it is just simply a continuation of the Trump administration's border strategy, just packaged neatly for liberal consumption, or not even discussed at all, like the $1.5 billion deal that Biden secured with AMLO in Mexico in order to invest in smart border protocols. Understand that the reason why they're doing that is because they're hedging their bets for a future where hundreds of millions of people will be rushing the American border and will either fucking enslave them or will just zap them with lasers. Thank you, Las Canarias, for the 17 gifted subs. Get that, right? Why? Because we're not doing shit about fixing climate change. That's why. New research using the wet bulb globe temperature hits danger zone at 87 Fahrenheit. Humans can't endure temperatures and humidities as high as previously thought. Okay, well, it's been widely believed that a 35 centigrade wet bulb temperature equal to 95 degrees at 100% humidity or 115 Fahrenheit at 50% humidity was the maximum a human could endure before they could no longer adequately regulate their body temperature, which would potentially cause heat stroke or death over a prolonged exposure. New study shows that it's actually 31 degrees centigrade or 87 Fahrenheit at 100% humidity, even for young, healthy subjects. So, I guess I'll die is like literally the fucking meme. You know what I mean? That's a regular day in Houston. Yeah, things are going to get fucking worse, too. The "this is fine" meme is quite literally becoming a reality. You know, the "this is fine," like the dog that is on fire in a house. Like, that is straight up the fucking reality now. Fuckers are like, at least I got the AC on. So, yeah. Let's take a look, trigger warning, at Ted Cruz before we move on to some other subjects to cover, okay? We got a lot of fire lined up for the rest of the day. But before we do that, I do have to mention Ted Cruz time. Ted Cruz is very, very upset at what's going on, okay? Let's take a look.
News in Washington. The Democrats are this close to getting their climate change agenda passed, with senators up all night in the so-called vote-a-rama this morning, where senators are offering amendments to elements of Biden's Build Back Better agenda that have been stalled for a year. The Senate voted 51-50 last night to move this bill forward, with Vice President Kamala Harris deciding vote to pass a reconciliation package, which will increase taxes and raise $700 billion over 10 years, largely to pay for Obamacare subsidies and climate change new rules. Texas Senator Ted Cruz is on the Judiciary Committee. He voted against this bill, and he joins me now with the very latest. Senator, thanks very much for being here this morning.
Well, good morning, Maria. Good to be with you.
Can you tell us about the amendments and the happenings right now in the Senate? Will this bill pass?
Well, sure. We've been up all night, voting all night. We're still in the middle of voting, so I just ran over from the Senate floor to join you for this discussion.
Listen, motherfuckers, I already gave you the trigger warning. I don't want to hear it, okay? Yes, Ted Cruz, trigger warning. Ted Cruz, trigger warning. Ted Cruz.
Discussion, but the Democrats are on the verge of ramming through what really is a terrible bill. This bill will hammer manufacturing. It will kill manufacturing jobs in this country. It will hammer small businesses.
What?
This bill will drive up gas prices. It has billions in new taxes on you.
Wait, why would this drive up gas prices, dude? What the fuck? Ted Cruz using the greatest thing that you could use, which is, of course, just making shit up. Awesome.
U.S. oil and gas production. We introduced amendments trying to take those new taxes out. So all the Democrats say they're worried and want to lower gas prices. They all just voted to raise gas taxes and to raise your price at the pump. This bill creates 87,000 new IRS agents. It doubles the size of the IRS. Those IRS agents are designed to come after you. They're not designed to come after the billionaires and the big corporations. They're designed to come after small businesses and working families across this country. The Democrats are making the IRS bigger than the Pentagon, plus the Department of State, plus the FBI, plus the Border Patrol combined. The IRS is going to be bigger. This is a massive power grab. And I got to say, it's amazing, Maria, watching these Democrats, amendment after amendment, common sense amendments, they vote against. I introduced an amendment to say, don't create 87,000 new IRS agents. Every Democrat voted no. I just introduced an amendment to say that Joe Biden and the federal government should not be able to sell oil from our strategic petroleum reserve to the Chinese communists. Biden sold over 2 million barrels of oil to the Chinese communists. Every Democrat but 4 voted no. They are bound and determined to try to ram this terrible bill through.
I want to get your take on a so-called wraparound amendment. I know that there were also amendments to try to get the Democrats to acknowledge that there is a wide open border. Will any of those...
I love her so much. She's just like... It's kind of wild to consider how, like Republicans will totally let go of their insanely misogynistic tendencies when it comes to some of the Republican commentators that are in positions of power. You know what I mean? She has. I'm sorry. Like, you don't often see me shit on Vocal Fry or anything, and it's totally fine. But like, she is so unique. Like, her voice is so fucking unique that it is like, I don't know what it is. It just like penetrates my brain in a way that no other voice is able to do.
Amendments stick, and what about a wraparound amendment at the end of the day that deletes all the other amendments that you would try to get through?
Well, right now, it may be that the Democrats don't even need to force through a wraparound amendment because they've managed to keep their side. They've kept party discipline where all of, even the supposed moderates, have been willing to vote against common sense bills. For example, as I said, every single Democrat, all of them voted to increase gas taxes. So the next time you see a Mark Kelly in Arizona, or Raphael Warnock in Georgia, or a Maggie Hassan in New Hampshire, or a Michael Bennet in Colorado, or Catherine Cortez Masto in Nevada say, hey, we want gas prices to be lower, you know they are lying because
called out some of the, not Raphael Warnock, but like some of the people that she called out are specifically like the moderate or people in like dangerous seats, I guess.
They stood up and voted, raise the gas taxes, stick it to the producers, make our consumers pay more at the pump. That's the end result they want, and their voting record proves it.
Well, it looks like they're going to be successful in this. And do you believe that taxes will go higher on most Americans? What about that promise that taxes would not be impacted for anybody making $400,000 or less?
Well, it's a flat-out lie. The Congressional Budget Office analyzed this bill, and it concluded a very large portion of it would be borne by people making under $400,000 a year, that just about every group of taxpayers would see their taxes go up. The Democrats know this, and by the way, we had amendments to say, let's not have any of these taxes fall on people making under $400,000. The Democrats all voted no. They are lying, and you know what they're counting on? They're counting on the corporate media just carrying their water for them and saying, oh, your taxes are not going up. It's not the truth. Wow. They know it's not the truth, but they expect the corporate media not to tell people. So unless they're watching your show or a handful of others, they're not hearing what's actually in this terrible bill.
That is absolutely extraordinary. I want to turn to the FBI and your committee's testimony with Christopher Wray testifying in front of your committee. Let's run this clip. I want you to explain it. Watch this.
The FBI agents were disciplined or reprimanded after that disastrous case and the misconduct that led to every defendant being acquitted or having a mistrial on every charge?
Senator, I can't comment on a personnel matter. I can tell you that.
I mean, dude, every media branch operates this way, by the way. Like, it's just not even people going, oh man, Fox News or whatever, but like every branch of the media is exactly like this. It's just like they just let you fucking lie, very little pushback, and then they turn around and go, all right, let's pull up a clip where you're looking like a fucking big dick badass.
That case, as I understand it, is now pending a retrial, as I understand it.
Well, the special agent in charge of that case has now been sent to D.C., to the Washington, D.C. office, and now leads the investigation regarding January 6th. Is that correct?
Kamala Khan, this is egregious? Yeah, no shit. Okay, I agree that MSNBC does this too, but Kamala Khan, this is egregious? Yeah, no shit, it's egregious. It's disgusting. I mean, put them in a fucking spaceship with Elon Musk on a rocket journey to the sun, okay? I don't give a fuck. Yeah, I agree. They suck.
That doesn't sound right to me.
So the guy in charge got promoted and is now in charge of the January 6th investigation.
The guy in charge of the whole Detroit field office is now in charge of the whole Washington field office.
That is astonishing.
Senator, what were you saying there? What did the FBI do in terms of the Gretchen Whitmer situation in Michigan? Was that entrapment?
It was. Look, unfortunately, one of the worst outcomes we've seen, both from the Barack Obama administration and now the Joe Biden administration, has been the deep politicization and weaponization of the Department of Justice and the FBI. They've turned the machinery of government and law enforcement into a weapon to attack their political enemies. And in the case of Gretchen Whitmer, we all remember in the fall of 2020, right before the presidential election, big announcement that they were prosecuting people involved in a plot to kidnap and murder the Democratic governor of Michigan.
Okay, so here's the thing. The FBI did what they always do with the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot, right? They like literally personally designed a kidnapping plot, found a bunch of dumbass patsies that will go along with it, and of course it fucking fell apart. Most leftists who are at least somewhat critical of the FBI and its practices immediately were like, yeah, that's bullshit. Okay, I said it. I was like, this is fucking silly. This is some silly Billy shit, right? A lot of people at the time got mad at me for saying that. Now, having said that, however, and there might be a little bit of FBI involvement in the January 6th stuff too, but ultimately, motherfuckers did go into the Capitol. Okay, so the fuck do you mean? That's what Alex Jones says. Yes, my friend, I know Alex Jones says that. Except Alex Jones never says that about Muslims. Which is surprising, right? Because most of the fucking terror plots that were thwarted by the FBI under the Obama administration, for example, were conducted by the FBI themselves, where they found like fucking autistic Muslim teenagers who they personally, openly in their own communications made fun of and were like, wow, that guy is R-worded. He couldn't even find his ass to wipe it if he doesn't even have that capability. Whereas, like, simultaneously, they were like, "Oh, we found a really bad terrorist guy that we luckily stopped from, doing a terror plot." Okay, that's true, by the way. Straight up, everything I just mentioned. Now, they would use beautiful women to message them out of the blue, at least in 2 local cases. Fucked up. However, there is, of course, actual dumbasses who are trying to do that, even without the FBI's involvement, okay? It's a matter of entrapment versus just, is there enough push there? Or is there enough enthusiasm across the board and the FBI is like just kind of there alongside the process? And when it comes down to it, I think the January 6th insurrection is a little bit more on the other side. The Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping was certainly more FBI involvement and less the own personal interests of these fucking idiots. But January 6th, on the other hand, still FBI involvement, but FBI involvement, if you were to look at both the FBI involvement and genuine enthusiasm to do insurrection, I would say genuine enthusiasm to do insurrection was certainly top of mind, top priority. So the idea that Ted Cruz is like using one instance of the FBI being fucking bad and doing classic FBI shit, and to defend wine moms and HVAC business owners that fucking travel from Arkansas to DC to go and like try to kill Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence or whatever. Yeah, I'm sorry. There's a difference there. These motherfuckers were so cocky that they live streamed themselves doing this shit because they thought that there would be no repercussions for it. How are you going to sit here and be like, oh, the FBI did that? It's like, no, motherfucker, they did that because they knew nothing would come of it. I don't really care about this as much, by the way. Yeah, new book details conflicts between Trump and his generals. Here, I'll give you the fucking most interesting part about it. There's a quote where Donald Trump literally says, why can't you be as loyal to me, my generals? Why can't you be as loyal to me like Hitler's generals were loyal to Hitler's generals? Okay? That's it. That's the most interesting quote from the entire fucking book. I don't give a shit. Trump is washed plus L plus ratio. Okay? Yeah, he did say that. For those of you who don't know, here, I'll just show you. Here, I'm sure they get to it.
Taking the job. And it reads, Milley assured him, Mr. President, you're going to be making the decisions. All I can guarantee from me is I'm going to give you an honest answer. And I'm not going to talk about it on the front page of the Washington Post. I'll give you an honest answer on everything I can. And you are going to make the decisions. And as
also, Hitler's generals did try to kill him, no? But whatever, that's besides the point.
long as they're legal, I'll support it. As long as they're legal, it was not clear how much that caveat even registered with Trump. Joining us now is Susan Glasser, CNN Global Affairs analyst and staff writer at The New Yorker. She's the co-author of this book called The Divider, which is billed as the inside story of the 4 years when Donald Trump went to war with Washington. And Susan, I really want to get to you speaking about your book, but I want to talk about what may be the most interesting part of it, which is the resignation letter that Mark Milley wrote but didn't send. So I'm just going to read a little bit about that.
Dude, this is like such whack-ass palace envy or palace intrigue. And it's like, oh my God, Mark Milley wanted to resign but didn't actually resign. It's like, these are books that nobody fucking reads. No one cares. Donald Trump is right. Woke military. Mark Milley is gay, okay? He's gay and he's a Maoist, and that's why he wanted to fucking retire, but he was too much of a pussy to actually retire. I just don't care. I don't care.
That so that you can speak about it. This was drafted in June of 2020 after what happened in Washington outside the White House with the use of the military. And he said, it is my belief that you are doing great and irreparable harm to my country. I believe that you have made a concerted effort over time to politicize the United States military. I thought that I could change that. I've come to the realization that I can't. He goes on to say you are using the military to create fear in the minds of the people. The American people trust their military, and they trust us to protect them against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and our military will do just that. And he says, third, I swore an oath to the Constitution of the United States that says all men and women are created equal. He says, it's obvious to me that you don't hold those values.
Yeah, but he fucking learned that when he read Mao Zedong, okay? I'm sick and tired of this. You have to admit this goes hard, though. Yeah, see, there it is. There's a real photo of Mark Milley being gay and loving CRT, which is also, gay as well and racist against white people, okay? Like, I just, like, I don't care. I can't do it. I can't, like, it's just so boring and fucking so whack. Like, these guys are all literally like, Mr. President, why can't we go back to just murdering 14-year-old brown kids overseas? Why do you have to also do a fascism here? Why can't we just keep doing a fascism overseas? Why is this so uninteresting to you? Because it doesn't fucking matter. Because he didn't actually kill Trump, okay? If you were a real Hitlerian-style general, you should have tried killing him. Why didn't you try to stab him? Or even scare him a little bit, you know what I mean? What the fuck? Just scare him. Go, boo, Mr. President. And then he'll be like, my heart can't handle it. It's just fucking bullshit. It's just bullshit. Yeah, just feed him 100 Big Macs, dude. Trump is like a dog. He has no sense of like control over how much food he can eat. Just feed him. Just keep feeding him until he fucking his blood vessels burst. Okay? I shows people just swatted on live stream where it ended up getting handcuffed in a stream. It was forcibly ended. Okay, why are you guys showing me this, dude? Don't you know that these motherfuckers get off on this shit, the people that do this? Did he get swatted or did he actually call the cops on himself? The idea that he's one jump scare away from death is pretty funny for Donald Trump. Yeah. 1 hour poll, settle it. Anyway, why would he have the police's number on speed dial? Good one.